Guess what time of the year it is?
Yep, it's my favourite time of the year again, folks. And it's also the time for Thomas Sember for the 5th year in a row.
Now I know it's been a very short series of Thomas Sember recently, what with just one series and one special each year. So I thought I'd spice things up a little bit this year. But I thought, what could I review that isn't from series 8 to 16? And then it hit me. Why not review some of the video games I've played?
Yeah, the video games are something that I've never covered before in Thomas Sember. And I think they deserve some acknowledgement. They gave the fans of the show as much pleasure as the TV series and the movie did. Whether it be a Super Nintendo game or a PC CD-ROM game, I'm going to be reviewing video games as well as this year's series and special.
There's just a few things to keep in mind here. This is only going to be restricted to the video games that I played as a kid, as well as Series 19 and The Great Race. So with all that said, sit back, relax and enjoy Thomas Sember for 2016.
Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends Adventures series was released for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in 1993.
In fact, I'm such a loon that I actually still got the copy of the game right here. And it still works too.
It was also released for the Sega Mega Drive Genesis with different gameplay. It was developed by Software Creations and published by THQ. After the title screen, you're given the option on what difficulty you want to play. Decides how easy or hard you want to play it. The only major difference is that with the harder level, you get an extra story with no narration track. And the activities on the game include the sliding puzzle, setting the switches, the jigsaw puzzle, Let's Race Bertie, Fixing the Tracks, Let's Race Percy, Let's Go with Thomas, and Thomas's Quiz.
The whole game is basically a various activities game. And that's fine for little kids, but when you're an adult who grew up with it, then it's not exactly as appealing as you remember it to be.
The sliding puzzle is, as what it says in the title, where they give you a different picture each time for a different scene from the show, and you have to push buttons to make it slide to make the picture look like as it is. Setting the switches is also like it says in the title. Setting some switches on the tracks so that you can get to the station. And a high five for the person who can guess what the jigsaw puzzle is. The Let's Race games are basically racing games where you can play as Thomas and race against Bertie and Percy. Now the Bertie one makes sense because Thomas used to race Bertie in the Classic series, and in the Andrew Brenner series as well. Anybody want to guess what Fixing the Tracks is? Anyone? Let's Go with Thomas is the stage that I always found the most entertaining when I was a kid. It was basically choosing one of the stories you were given to read along with the robot voice. For easy and medium you had Thomas and the Breakdown Train and Thomas and Bertie. But when you go to the harder setting, you get those two stories and Thomas, Percy and the Post Train. And that's the story that comes with no narration track. So basically that story just gets you to read the story yourselves. And Thomas's Quiz is a quiz game where you answer questions that are based on the story you've read. Or if you've just gone straight to Thomas's Quiz before reading the story, it just gives you any random story and you've got to guess. But if you're a TV fan nerd like I am, then you'll know the answer to the questions right away. And because I still got the Super Nintendo Entertainment System working from my childhood, I fired up the old game and played it to see what it was like now that I'm an adult. And it's honestly nothing special when you're an adult. But it is a fun activity game for the kids.
If you still have a working Super Nintendo Entertainment System and have kids that love Thomas the Tank Engine, then I definitely recommend this game for your kids. If they love Thomas the Tank Engine, I'm sure they're going to love this game.
So if you're a Thomas fan and have kids of your own, then I would definitely recommend this game for anyone who has kids of their own that love Thomas the Tank Engine. They'll get some enjoyment out of it, and I guess adults will get some enjoyment out of it watching their kids have fun with it too. Thomas and the Magic Railroad Prince Studio is a PC CD-ROM game released by Hasbro Interactive and Europress. The game features narration by Michael Angelis in the UK. Surprised?
So what with Thomas and the Magic Railroad Print Studio being the second Thomas the Tank Engine video game I've ever owned, as well as the first Thomas the Tank Engine video game for the PC I ever owned, how does this one hold up compared to the Super Nintendo game? Well, let's take a look.
Thomas and Friends from the popular TV program and the movie are now featured in the Magic Railroad Print Studio. This is where imaginative and creative kids can try out many practical but fun projects. They'll find it's very easy to design and colour in their own creations, especially with the help of Michelangelo as the Topham Hatt.
And the final verdict? Well, it's basically another activity game. But a different kind of activity game.
Yeah, like Adventure series, it's basically just another activities game. But this one's got a different kind of activities, which is basically teaching kids how to use Microsoft Paint in a Thomas version. But it's still a good thing for kids if you want to teach them how to use Paint and all that. So it's got many activities like Postcards with Thomas, where you could create and print out postcards to send to people, Posters with Percy, where you could create and print posters, Jigsaws with Diesel 10, where you could create and print jigsaws, Growth Charts with James, where you can create and print out growth charts, Big Maps with Splatter, where you can make and print big maps, Cut Out and Build with Lady, where you can print off pictures of various things from the TV series and the movie, and cut them out and build them. And Colour In with Dodge is basically where you can choose a picture of your choice and then colour it in with the different colours. And that's basically it. It's just creating and painting on a computer.
It's just basically activities where you can print off after you've finished doing it on the computer. Like postcards, growth charts, colouring pictures, cut out and build things, and painting your own characters. But the cut out and build thing is pretty awesome if you don't want to make your own sets for Fan Thomas videos.
Now, if I'm honest, there's quite a few things about this PC CD-ROM game that don't really hold up as well today. Like, if you were a kid back when the Magic Railroad was released, then you most probably have wanted a game that's actually based on the movie, where you can actually play through levels that are within the movie. But we didn't get that. Instead, we got this Print Studio game. And there's also the fact that some of the tunes that were chosen don't always fit the characters. I mean, the themes they chose for Thomas, Percy, James, Lady, and possibly even Dodge do fit them very well. But I honestly don't get why they chose the Fat Controller's theme for Splatter. I mean, they could have easily chosen one of the nasty themes, like for Diesel or whoever. And whose idea was it to have Trevor the Traction Engine's theme with Diesel 10? I mean, wow, talk about unfitting.
So yeah, not exactly the masterpiece that I remember it to be. But it's definitely a fun video game for your kids if you want to get them to learn how to use things on the computer.
But all that aside, whether you like this game or not, it's still an interesting game to give to kids if you want to teach them how to use Paint and all that on the computer. But it's nothing really that memorable for adults, so I wouldn't recommend it for an adult. But I would recommend it for an adult who has a kid of their own and loves Thomas the Tank Engine. I'm sure the kids will get some entertainment and fun out of this game. And it does make for making good buildings and layouts for Thomas with the cut out and build bit.
I'd say that this game is definitely worth getting for your kids if you want to teach them how to use things on the computer. It'll be a step up for them to show them how to use Paint, and other systems that are on the PC.
So if you've got kids of your own, I definitely recommend this game for that. They'll get some fun out of it, as well as a lot of building and creating activities. Thomas and Friends The Great Festival Adventure is a PC game developed by Mind's Eye Productions and published by Hasbro Interactive in 1999.
So with this being the third and final Thomas the Tank Engine video game I would ever own, how does this one hold up compared to the first two? Well, let's dive right in.
The Great Festival is coming to Sodor, and the Fat Controller tells the engines what their jobs are for the day. And the game is basically just you playing as Thomas as he goes through many mishaps and misadventures in order to get ready for the festival.
So what's the final verdict for this game? It's better than the first two games combined.
I'd say this game is definitely better than Adventure series and Thomas and the Magic Railroad Prince Studio because this one has an actual story to it. Whereas in the previous games where you just play a bunch of activities, this one has activities that actually fold up to a big story. And the fun activities you get have 3 levels each. There's the engine sheds, where you help Thomas, Percy and Gordon get cleaned and repaired for the festival. The Rockfall, where you help load the fallen rocks onto trucks with Howard the helicopter. Loading at the docks, where Cranky and Bulstrode are waiting with the packages for the festival and help is needed to place them into the correct trucks. Passenger pickup, where Thomas takes Annie and Cloud out to the station ready to pick up passengers chosen for the festival. The cow escape, where you have to help Terence the tractor herd the cows back into their field. Building the rides, where you help Howard the helicopter build the rides by selecting the right shadow to fit the pieces. And making music, where you can make music at the festival by clicking on various things like the cow, the engines, Bertie the bus, and the music players. And that was an awesome bit in the game when I was a kid.
This video game has various activities in it like the previous video games had. But compared to the previous 2 games, this one has a story that goes with the activities, rather than just printing and colouring things just because.
And as you'd expect with most video games, this one has cutscenes that fold into the story. All of the voices were provided by Michael Angelis. Surprised? But one difference from the TV series is the fact that this one has no narrations like said Thomas, said Percy, fought Gordon and all that stuff. It's just basically Michael Angelis telling the story as it is and letting the characters speak for themselves in his voices. And that was quite a huge change from Thomas. Well, for a video game I mean, not in the TV series. That would come later. The activities in the game are pretty fun and the cutscenes are quite entertaining when you watch them, like Gordon getting spun around on the turntable, Henry passing Thomas when Thomas thinks he could race Henry, and Edward getting into trouble with the troublesome trucks.
I swear to God that they actually looked at pictures from the Railway series to get inspiration for some of the layouts in this game. I mean, just look at the turntable in this scene and see what book pops into your head.
Seriously, have a look at those 2 turntables together and see if you don't notice the difference. Go on, I dare you. I'll wait for you to come back. Back already? Good, let's get on with the review.
So out of all the Thomas the Tank Engine video games I played during my childhood, The Great Festival Adventure is definitely the better one out of the 3.
It's nothing extremely eye-catching for the adults, but it is entertaining for the kids, and it is better than Adventure series and the Magic Railroad Prince Studio combined, since it has a full-on story like you'd expect with most video games rather than just being an activity thing. So entertaining for the kids, and I'd highly recommend it if you have kids of your own that love Thomas the Tank Engine. Wow, that was really repetitive. I mean, I've said that for like all the games that I've reviewed. But yeah, if you want to get all these games for your kids that like Thomas the Tank Engine, then I'd recommend all of them. But me personally, The Great Festival Adventure is the best out of the bunch. It's got a story, fun activities, and fun moments with Michael Angelis as the voices. It's a good game to add to your collection. The 19th series of Thomas the Tank Engine began airing on the 21st of September 2015 in the UK, and on the 13th of October 2015 in the US. The series was narrated once again by Mark Morricone for the UK and US audiences, respectively.
With this being the 19th series of the show, and the 3rd series that Andrew Brenner has headed for, how does this series hold up? Well, let's have a look.
Each episode of the series was basically just focusing on some of the classic characters, as well as introducing a few new characters like Philip. In fact, from what I can remember, Philip is the only new engine that was introduced in this series, since most of the episodes were focusing on some of the already existing characters. Philip has a big personality. He's a comic character and a bit of a clown. He's very eager and full of enthusiasm, and has an innocent, but very overblown sense of his own capabilities. He can be very funny, but some of the bigger engines can have very little patience for the little boxcar. In fact, in one episode it was said that Philip reminds Edward of Thomas when he first came to the island of Sodor. That's quite a nice callback to the original series. Now, I'm not really going to talk about every single episode of the show because that would just make this review too long, but I will talk about some of my favourite episodes from the show. Like Lost Property, where some railway inspectors come to Sodor and one loses his watch during Thomas's inspection. This one is nice to see because it's the first time in a while I've seen some railway inspectors come into the railway. And it's another one of those situations where first they seem very unimpressed, but after a heroic action from Thomas they start to become very impressed indeed and give a good review of the railway. In The Beast of Sodor, Spencer arrives at Tidmouth Sheds one snowy evening and tells a tale of the abominable snowman. This is actually quite entertaining because you see the Fat Controller get into a lot of kerfuffles with his car through the snow. And the funniest moment in this episode has to be this scene.
Maybe the abominable snowman has taken him. The abominable snowman! Abominable snowman? Utter tis-toss.
Goodbye Fat Controller kind of reminds me of Thomas and the Rumours from Series 5. Because it overlooks the whole rumours thing where someone hears something and then gets the wrong idea. And this is actually a very entertaining episode, and even though we as the audience know the truth, you do see how the engines are going to miss the Fat Controller when they think that he's leaving the railway forever. And from what I can remember, it's the first time in years we've seen the engines of Sodor go on strike. I mean, I don't think that's happened since the Classic series ended. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section below, but I can't remember it ever happening in the new series until now. And the ending is pretty funny too. And Salty All at Sea is quite an interesting episode because it tackles something that we've never heard before for Salty. The fact that he's never actually been on a boat at sea before. Yeah, you surprised? I mean, all the times we've seen him, he's told so many tales about the sea, and yet we've never actually seen him on a boat. And it turns out that he's never actually been on a boat before. Which raises the question of how the hell he got to the railway in the first place. Yeah, maybe he just used the bridge from the mainland, but it's still a very interesting episode about Salty. Another episode I quite like is Thomas the Babysitter, where Thomas must deal with a noisy baby on his train. And this episode stands out for me the most in this series because it's dealing with something that I normally deal with in everyday life on public transport. Crying babies.
Oh, I don't think babies like trains. I'm not looking forward to this journey at all.
And usually I can't stand babies crying due to having bad experiences with them on public transportation. But I honestly quite enjoy this one because it actually reflects something that I often go through in my everyday life.
And it might make me sound like a cold-hearted bastard, but I just can't stand babies crying on public transport, or anywhere for that matter. But with like the young infant babies, sort of like a month old or whatever, I can understand it because they're babies and aren't able to talk yet, and crying's the only way they can communicate. But with children that are old enough to talk, that's when it really pisses me off. Especially when the parents are trying to shut them up and calm them down, but with no avail. But the thing that really annoys me is when the parents just do nothing about it. But this episode doesn't do any of that. It actually has the mother trying to calm the baby down, with no success. And that's what makes it stand out for me the most, because it's something I experience in everyday life. This episode also takes a pretty heavy hit at Sharon Miller's writing style. Just listen to this bit of dialogue.
I know what to do. Every time I stop, the baby starts crying. So, I won't stop at all.
That's a terrible idea, Thomas.
What about the other passengers?
And you'll get into trouble with the Fat Controller.
I suppose you're right.
Ouch.
Oh, silly you.
Clever us.
And Diesel's Ghostly Christmas, what the hell can I say about this episode? It's the Thomas the Tank Engine version of A Christmas Carol. And it was the first episode that was like 20 minutes long. Now I know it's technically a 2-part episode, but I like to call it a 20-minute episode since it's basically all the same story. Pretty much like how a lot of the episodes from the Classic series were split into 3-part episodes. A lot of people may have been wanting a Christmas Carol version of Thomas, and Diesel's Ghostly Christmas is the closest we'll ever get, I think. And in the episode The Other Side of the Mountain, Jack from the Pack makes a cameo in the episode. And this is the first time we've seen them in an episode since the 12th series. And I say series because I know we saw the pack in Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure, but I'm going episode-wise. Like I've said in my previous reviews of Thomas Sember, Rosie barely gets any time on the screen. Of course she gets some cameos, but we never see her have a proper appearance as well as an episode to herself.
And I know you're all going to say, here we go again. But I do think that Rosie could have had some more screen time in this one as well as her own episodes.
I mean, we haven't had an episode with Rosie all to herself since Rosie's Funfair special. And I really think she deserves more time on the spotlight since she's one of the few new series characters from series 8 to 16 that I really do enjoy. So, try not to repeat myself here, but I do hope that Rosie does get more screen time in the future. The 19th series also has a revamped version of the engine roll call, which isn't as ear painful as the first version, but I still prefer the original theme tune. But this is less painful for my ears. Another plus for this series, and this is a callback to my review of the 18th series, is that the animation is very spectacular too. Right down to the sunset scenes, they just look amazing. This would also be the last series with music composed by Robert and Peter Hartshorn since their contracts ended after Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. The new composer, Chris Renshaw, would take over as composer from Thomas and Friends in 4D, Bubble and Boilers, and The Great Race onwards. But we'll get to that when we get to the next review. So Series 19 is definitely an improvement from the previous series, as well as the other series from Series 8 to 16. A definite improvement over those.
So the series is definitely getting better and better each year since Andrew Brenner became head writer, and Series 19 is a good example of that.
So me overall, I would highly recommend this for any Thomas the Tank Engine fan. It's got entertaining stories, very few new characters since they're focusing on the original characters, and the first ever Thomas version of A Christmas Carol. You'll get a lot of enjoyment out of it, as I know I have. And Diesel's Ghostly Christmas really does get you in the mood for Christmas if you want to watch it. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, the big one for 2016. Thomas and Friends, The Great Race, the animated musical adventure film. This is the last special to be animated by Art Productions under their original name, as they renamed themselves Jam-Filled Toronto in August 2016. There was a lot of advertisement for this film, whether it be on the TV or the official YouTube channel. This movie was advertised in so many ways, like with trailers and individual videos for the contenders of the Great Railway Show.
And I've got to tell you right now, ever since this special was announced, I've had emails up the wall and some messages on my Facebook and fanbook page asking me if I was going to review this one. Well, here's my review of it for all of you to see. So let's begin with... wait a minute. If I'm going to review this special, I need the proper attire. Well, I've got to root for the home team, haven't I? Anyway, on with the story.
After Thomas wins a quick race against Gordon and reaches the end of the line at Vickerstown Station, he is introduced to Gordon's brother, the Flying Scotsman, played by Rufus Jones, who is taking part in the Great Railway Show on the mainland, and he encourages Thomas to try and take part as well. Though every engine on Sodor, and I literally mean every engine, wants to take part, the Fat Controller has not made up his mind yet, and Thomas fears he won't be picked to go to the competition. After getting an idea to be streamlined for the competition, he passes his idea to the Fat Controller, who believes it would be perfect for Gordon, much to Thomas's dismay. At Brendam Docks, Thomas has a run-in with several of the competitors for the Great Railway Show, when their rail ferry docks there by mistake. As a result, one of them is left behind. The engine, a beautifully painted one from India named Ashima, makes a bad first impression on Thomas, but upon getting another idea regarding her paintwork from Annie and Clarabelle, he heads to the steamworks to be repainted, but is forced to reveal his new idea to the Fat Controller, who selects James and Emily to be repainted instead. Running into Ashima again after learning she took Annie and Clarabelle down his branch line, Thomas is convinced by her to just be himself and take part in the shunting challenge at the Great Railway Show since he's good at shunting. However, thanks to a trip by devious Diesel involving Den, Dart and Paxton, Thomas suffers an accident with Norman at Knapford Junction, and has been left behind to have his front end mended while Percy takes his place. At the end, Thomas is able to go, despite not being fully repaired, when it is discovered that Gordon left without his safety valve being properly installed while he was being streamlined, leaving his boiler vulnerable to overheating, especially at high speeds. And it's all a race against time for Thomas to save Gordon before his boiler blows up, and he gets to take part in the Great Railway Show and show everybody what he's made of.
So if I could sum up this special in just one word, what would that one word be? Awesome.
This feature-length special has the biggest collection of characters I've ever seen in a Thomas special. I mean, we got engines from all over the world in this one. We got engines from China, from Brazil, from America, from Australia, from Germany, from France, Ashima from India, and we even got the Flying Bloody Scotsman.
First hearing about the special seemed an interesting idea, having international characters from all sorts of countries in one special. But the thing that really got me excited for it was the introduction of the Flying Scotsman.
As soon as the Flying Scotsman was announced for the special, everybody was going nuts for it. They were really excited to finally see the Flying Scotsman in the TV series properly. Of course, we did get a cameo from him in Series 3 with tender engines, but it was really just seeing his two tenders since they ran out of money to finish his model in time. But this was the first time we got to see him full on, and Rufus Jones really does do a great performance as the Flying Scotsman, given that upper class charm as well as that cockiness that Gordon has.
Good luck, little brother.
And as soon as the Flying Scotsman said a particular line in the special, I was sitting there thinking, he is definitely Gordon's brother.
Flying Scotsman coming through!
And Flying Scotsman looks great in this special too. I mean, it's just a really great design. It's basically taking a combination of all the previous appearances he's had before and today. Like taking his current appearance with his smoke deflectors, but giving him the LNER apple green paintwork as well as his second tender. And that really is fitting since he had his second tender in the Railway series. That was just a really fitting design for him, mixing in the old with the new. That's just really clever.
And I actually got to ride on the Flying Scotsman during the summer of this year, and boy was it worth the ride. And this special shows him in all his glory.
And another great thing they did with Flying Scotsman in this special was that they gave him an actual personality. And I know that sounds insane for me to say since he was in the Railway series, but let's be honest, he didn't have enough time in that book to show off a personality and really shine, since it was really about the other engines and he was just brought in to see Gordon. But here they give him a personality. He's pretty much as cocky as Gordon is, and even teases Gordon by calling him little brother. That's actually pretty funny since I know a lot about sibling rivalries. But in the end they're still brothers and they really do care for each other. And it's especially shown when Flying Scotsman shows concern for Gordon's boiler. And we also got a kind of villain in Vinny the American Engine. But he's not exactly the main villain, he's really just a basic typical show-off jerk who thinks little engines are unimportant and just doesn't like them at all.
You better watch where you're going, Shorty, or you might end up being recycled.
And there's lots of foreign characters in this special that really didn't get that much time to shine since it was really focusing on Thomas and Ashima. But it would be nice to see a lot of these characters return in the future. Even if they just had one episode to themselves, I wouldn't mind it.
So it's a shame that all the other characters in this special haven't had much time to themselves, but hey, it's all about Thomas and Ashima, right? But still, it would be nice to see a lot of them come back in the future for just cameos and other specials. It'd even be cool if a lot of them had some episodes of their own in the series.
I would just love to see these characters get a bigger time on the spotlight and show off their personalities.
As for other characters in the special, I really do like Ashima because she plays a really big role in this story as a friend of Thomas.
And I thought it was really nice and fitting that they got an actual Indian actress to play her.
I'm competing in the shunting challenge, Emily. Just because we're well painted doesn't mean we can't do anything else.
And when I look at this engine, she just looks absolutely gorgeous. I mean, look at all those colours on her, the patterns and everything. And maybe it's because I'm a sucker for colourful things because I'm quite the arty type, but she really does look beautiful. And they've made some hints in the special that Thomas might have a bit of a crush on her, which might piss off a lot of the fans who love Thomas and Rosie fanfiction. But it never really pissed me off because I just really kind of enjoyed it. And it's like the typical thing with girls, like Thomas meets the girl and sort of gets the wrong idea about her, but eventually gets to like her in the end. And that's really nice.
You are a very funny little tank engine.
And she's the one who encourages him to just be himself. And that's really the big message of this story, just be yourself. It's great that they would do this kind of message in this story without shoving it down the kids' throats like a lot of films and TV shows tend to do. But here the message is done really, really well. And it gets the message across without shoving it in your face. Now let's talk about Gordon's streamlining. People either seem to like the streamlining or dislike the streamlining. I'm one of the people that actually kinda likes it. I mean, to me it just looks a little bit similar to the Stania stream designing on the Carnations. Like the kind of streamlining that looks good on some engines, but gets in the way of essential maintenance, like they did in real life, compared to the A4 streamlining. And the music in this special was done by new composer Chris Renshaw. And like all the other composers before him, his music really conveys the emotions of the scenes. Of course I miss Mike O'Donnell and Junior Campbell's music, but his music really does the story well. And remember when I said that this was a full musical movie? Well, I literally mean it. This special has a lot more songs than Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure did. With Will You Won't You, Streamlining, I'm Full of Surprises, You Can Only Be You, The Shooting Star Is Coming Through, Be Who You Are and Go Far, the list goes on. And You Can Only Be You is one of my favourite songs because it's sung by Oshima, and her actress just has a beautiful singing voice. And all the visuals that go on in that kind of reminds me of Never Overlook a Little Engine from Lost Treasure. I mean, like all the things that goes on in the backgrounds, the visuals, it's just really amazing and so musical-like. I also really love Diesel's song, I'm Full of Surprises, which is basically his kind of villain song. And I just love how the song starts off as being like dark and devious like the character, and then it just turns into something like happy and bouncy and all that, just showing how Diesel feels he's full of surprises. That was a really interesting take for a villain song in my opinion. And when they started advertising this movie, a lot of people were assuming that this was going to be related to the Railway Books series, Thomas and the Great Railway Show, just because it was advertised The Great Railway Show. But it wasn't at all related to the Great Railway Show from the Railway series, which some people might have been disappointed in, but I didn't really mind it. But one suggestion I do have for this special would have been to have given Rosie a bigger time in the spotlight. Of course she did get a cameo of her working, like keeping the industrial side of the island, but I think it would have been nice to have had a scene where she encourages Thomas to follow his passions of joining the Great Railway Show. I just think it would have been a nice interaction between Thomas and Rosie after all these years. But that's just a little suggestion, and the fact that it doesn't have that doesn't come close to ruining this special. And I've heard that some people kind of went up the wall a bit when they found out that there was engines from different countries in the special. But I honestly don't mind that. It's kind of teaching kids to get along with people from different cultures, which is a very good lesson to teach kids, getting along with people from all sorts of different races and cultures. That is another really good lesson people should teach kids without shoving it in their faces.
And you may remember last Christmas when I said that Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure was the best Thomas special so far. Well, this one topped it on all accounts.
So for me, it's Thomas and Friends The Great Race, the greatest Thomas feature-length special ever. In fact, it's so great that it actually does top Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. It's got more characters, more songs, a well-written story, a lesson that doesn't get shoved down your throat, and it's entertaining for all ages.
You've got a Thomas the Tank Engine special that will be remembered for many years to come. And seeing the Flying Scotsman in it is freaking awesome.
So if you haven't seen it yet, definitely put it on and see what you've missed out on. And that's the end of Thomas December for 2016. I want to thank you all for joining me in the look back at these video games, Series 19 and The Great Race. It's been so much fun to look through all these video games that I played as well as Series 19 and The Great Race. So once again I'd like to thank you all for joining me and hope you all have a Merry Christmas.